Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crafting Excellence, Human-Centered Legal Design. My name is Stevie. I'm a product design manager here at Clio, and I'm super excited to introduce Angela. Okay, we're going to thank our innovator exhibiting partners and our visionary exhibiting partners as well. And then I'm going to tell you a little about Angela. So Angela is the fund advocate and the founder of Sage Legal. She brings you 25 years of experience of really fresh, client-focused, and heart-centered approach to law. So she started her career in civil litigation in Boston's financial district, where she really honed her skills as a negotiation expert in really high-risk recreational sports insurance in both New England and Eastern Canada. And then, post-divorce, a fresh ADHD diagnosis later, she then actually pivots to estate planning and helps solo lawyers really simplify their law firm practices in order to bring a lot more joy into their lives. She focuses on helping them find those affordable tech solutions. So she's a life coach, a Clio enthusiast, an affiliate partner, a tennis lover, and a tennis coach. Angela is all about helping others streamline their life and law to find more balance and joy both on and off the clock. Welcome to the stage, Angela Hayden.
Thank you, Stevie. That was like the nicest introduction I've ever received. And also really reinforced that ADHD diagnosis. I'm like, what else do I do? We didn't mention certified firewalk instructor, so that's on the list too. So welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to have you all here today. Our program is called Crafting Excellence, Human-Centered Legal Design. And I have to admit, when I was first asked to do this program, I was kind of like, I'm doing what? So I had to go look it up. As a solo practitioner, I don't really spend a lot of time in the world of, I kind of think of this as like corporate speak, like business corporate speak. So I had to go look up what it is. And what I came up with as the best definition for human design, I knew I was going to say human design. Any human design people in here? A little bit in the woo-woo world. Anyway, human-centered design is the Harvard Business School website's definition, which is human-centered design is a problem-solving technique that puts real people at the center of the development process, enabling you to create products and services that resonate and are tailored to your audience's needs. Sounds pretty simple, right? I know from my own experience as a solo practitioner, I've spent a lot of money and a lot of time on outside vendors, tech people, creating systems and processes in my own practice. I think I totaled up what I've spent, it's over 6 figures on consultants and tech solutions. And where I am now is I figured out that most of the solutions that I need are actually really simple, and I get them from Clio. So what I want to share with you all today is some of the ways that I have used the tools that we all have access to as Clio customers to simplify life, to create systems and process, and also add a little bit of the human element. So one of the things that I discovered, so when I first started my career, as Stevie mentioned, I was in Boston's financial district. I was at a 100-year-old plus law firm. I had 14 black suits. I don't know how many pairs of black heels I had, but I would, trot to court. I called them my mean girl shoes because they'd toughen me up to go kind of be a little more difficult in hearings. Just saw a couple people laugh. These are less mean, but way more comfortable. And what I grew up believing as a lawyer is that I had to behave a certain way, and I had to speak a certain way, and I had to present a certain way. I don't know if that resonates for anybody else in this room, but there was something inside of me that was always longing to be different, to put something out there that was so outside of the box, but I was terrified of doing that. And I had a lot of pressure in my personal life and in my professional life not to do those things. So several years later, I finally figured out that I just had to be brave and I had to find the courage to do those things. If you were to look at my law firm website, if you're curious and you want to look it up, it's sagelegalcounsel.com. I had my website done by non-lawyer website people. And it does not look a lot like a lawyer website. And what I found is that, I saw a couple people nodding, what I found is that clients like that. They actually come to me and they say, hey, I really like that your website does not look like a lawyer website. And that really resonated with me. And so I started getting curious about what else I could do that didn't seem very lawyer-like. The people who did my current iteration on my website, I met them at a women's business networking event. My practice is in New Hampshire, about an hour north of Boston. And I found the words come out of my mouth the first time I introduced myself to that group. And I self-identified as a fun lawyer. And that kind of stuck. And so these marketing folks that I know, they wanted to capture that in my website. And they said, that really is something that's different. And I used to think that was true. And then as I started showing up more and more as a more fun lawyer, I started meeting a lot of other fun lawyers too. So it's pretty cool. So what I want to do today is provide an opportunity for each of you who are here, not just to talk academically about the concept of human-centered design, but to give you an opportunity to create perhaps something that's fun in your own law practice, or bring a little bit more of you and who you are into your practice. And I'm going to talk about some of the tools in Clio that I've used and the way that I've incorporated more of who I am into the way that I use those tools. So if you want to play along here for a minute, I want to invite you all just to close your eyes just for a minute and remember going back to the days that you're in kindergarten and the fun things that you got to do when you were a little kid. So maybe it was finger painting and having a blank piece of paper, getting to pull out a box of crayons and just draw whatever you want. When's the last time you did that? It's been a long time since I've done that. Maybe for you, it was playing outside in the woods and building forts, using sticks as swords with your siblings or your friends, your neighborhood friends. Maybe it was playing with dolls or trucks. But as we get older, so often we get disconnected from that sense of playfulness and fun and creativity, and especially in the practice of law. We don't have a lot of opportunity to bring the joy and the fun of who we are into our professional life. So I just want to give you a few seconds to sit with that. If you can pull up a memory, or maybe it's a past memory, maybe it's something you've been longing to do, and just feel that. Feel that for a moment. And imagine what that might be for you. So for those of you, probably everybody, just about everybody, who was there for Jack's talk this morning, his concept of reducing resistance in the flywheel of our professional lives really resonated with me. And I want to talk a little bit about that today and how you can do that in your own life, both in and out of the office. So when we talk about human-centered legal design, there are really two sides of that in our practices. So the first side, I would actually flip these slides if I were to flip the sides on the slide, if I were to redo this slide, and I would put the lawyer side first. And maybe you've heard of the oxygen mask concept, putting on your oxygen mask first and taking care of you. A lot of the things that I've designed in my own practice were really to take the stress off of me as a solo practitioner. And when I started thinking about what stressed me out in my law practice, and I gave myself permission to sit there like a little kid with the box of crayons and the blank piece of paper, I began to come up with solutions. And I started to have ideas. And I started to have some of them really, really interesting ideas. And I'll tell you, I haven't tried all of them, but some of the ideas I've tried and failed. I'll share a couple of those with you in a few minutes. And I'll let you know what I did as a result of the failures and how I turned them into, one of them I turned into something that's been working really, really well. The other side is the client side. So sometimes the things that we need to design for ourselves may or may not land well with clients. Something that I've been doing more and more recently is asking my clients when we sit down in a meeting, hey, how's this thing working for you? Any other estate planners in the room here today? Yeah, so my practice is almost exclusively estate planning now, as well as I do coaching and consulting with other lawyers, mostly solos. But I've had this vision of making estate planning easier instead of the let's go back and forth. Here's the consultation. Now we're going to do the design meeting. Here's the intake form for you to fill out. And I've had plans, and probably everybody who does planning has had a situation where it goes months and months and months. And I have one client who actually paid me over a year ago. So the money's sitting there, and they just hadn't gotten around to completing their intake form. And these are people that I know, I'm friendly with them. And I said, let's just get this done. Let's just do it in a day. I want you and your wife to take the day off from work, and let's just sit down, and you're going to make decisions together. I'm going to carve out the day to be with you and answer all your questions. You're going to go out for a really long lunch, and I'm going to get your documents drafted, and then we're going to go over them. And that concept's been percolating in my head for a long time. And I had a lot of lawyers who said, that's never going to work. But I wanted to try it anyway. So I did. And I'll tell you, it didn't quite happen in a day, but we were close. We got like 95% of it done. And what was really cool is I asked my clients, hey, what worked for you about this? And they gave me their feedback. And I said, you know what, you're right. And I think, as I told them what I thought I could do better in that process, they shared their response to that. So if you aren't trying unusual things in your practice and you want to, don't be afraid to ask your clients how things land with them. I want to absolutely extend that invitation to you. So, lawyer life design. And if you're curious about the branding of my slides, this is so consistent with my marketing people, with the coaching business. It is called the Fun Advocate. And going back to that moment a little bit ago of tapping into your creativity and that sense of fun and play, I want to invite you again to close your eyes and imagine what your ideal life as a lawyer might look like. And perhaps there are people in here who are having like the perfect life right now already. If you are, share your tips. Let's hear them, right? I'm not quite there, but I'll tell you, I'm way closer to it now than I was like 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. And so I want to share for anybody who feels like it's a lost cause to find alignment and work-life balance in law. I want you to know that it is possible because I'm pretty freaking close to it. So, and I've seen it happen with other people. So I want to invite you again to close your eyes for a minute and imagine if you could have your perfect day, what would that look like? What do you do when you wake up first thing in the morning? What are you going to eat? Are you scrambling around, yelling at your kids, trying to get them ready to get out the door? I used to do that every freaking day. It was so stressful. It's probably not part of your perfect day, is it? I think some people love that, though. They love to have a little bit of drama to get things going. What are you going to do next? Are you going to pick up your phone first thing in the morning and start the doom scroll, looking at your emails? Right? The doom scrolling is totally doom scrolling. Are you going to look at social media? Right? Maybe something else might call to you. Perhaps you listen to a little meditation app before you get out of bed. I don't know. You get to decide what that perfect day looks like. And I want to ask you a question as you imagine that perfect day. What's getting in the way right now of you having that day? Can you think of one thing, two things, three, maybe five things that are getting in the way of you having that perfect day every single time you get out of bed? Jot those down. Just jot those down. Type them in if you're using your phone or your laptop. What are those things that are getting in the way? And we're going to circle back to that in a few minutes so that you're going to have an opportunity to problem solve and try to find solutions to those things that are getting in the way. Another thing I didn't actually mention in my intro, added to the ADHD list. I quit drinking a couple years ago, and I went through peer recovery coach training. I volunteer a lot for Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers in my state. I've led a wellness group for a National Bar Association for several years, which was just a once-a-month Zoom call where people would get together and talk about the stressors in their life. Sometimes people would ask for some collective problem solving around things that were getting between them and finding joy in life and finding fun in life. So there was a point to that, but okay, ADHD brain. But don't be afraid to talk to other people too. And we're going to do a little bit of that too in the audience as we start to get into this. So on the human-centered legal design and using Clio's tools, there we go. I want you to think about why you might like to change things in your practice. If you have something, again, if everything's perfect and you don't need anything in your life, fantastic. Please jump up during the Q&A session and share your secrets. What I found for myself and what I hear from a lot of other lawyers that I work with, why they want to change things or why they want to simplify, it's almost never about things like KPIs and ROIs and making more money. It's almost always about reducing stress. It's almost always about creating order from the chaos. It's almost always about having more time to spend with their family. Often it's people who are dealing with aging parents, sick kids, a sick spouse, maybe their own health issues. And that was part of my why, is I had some stuff that I had to deal with people that are close to me in my personal life. And I needed to figure out how to take the brain power that is required of taking care of those non-billable admin tasks like Jack was talking about earlier. That can take up so much energy in our thinking. And if you're dealing with something in your life, in your personal life, you got to figure out how to reduce that load on your brain. And that's what I had to do. That's why I did this. So why do you want to incorporate more human-centered design into your legal practice, into the systems that you might be using or want to use more of in Clio? More time out of the office, creating a better client experience. That comes up too. Better work-life balance and a better quality of life in the office. I keep pushing the wrong button here. So there we go. Let's go to the next slide. So here are 4 areas as we get into kind of the nitty gritty and the nuts and bolts of what Clio can do to help your life be better and also improve your client experience. Number 1 is appointment booking. Show of hands, how many people use the appointment booking in Clio, automatic appointment booking? Are you sure? Is it? Okay. I use both, so I apologize if I blend the lines between it. And if you absolutely don't want Grow in your practice, I'm going to suggest something else that might be available, which is Calendly. Yeah, are you a Calendly user? Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're using Clio or, I mean, I probably shouldn't say that. We're at ClioCon. But, but appointment booking is one thing. It's amazing how many seconds we lose going back and forth by email or text trying to book appointments with people. And it's shocking when you add up that time over time. In my tennis life, in my tennis world, I've captained teams. Just a little like shout out to us for going to nationals at the end of the month. And by the way, all the qualifiers, this is for is the women's team over 40. Very mediocre rec level players. Like, we are not pros, and we are not getting paid to go. We are spending a lot of money to go to this competition. So but it's part of the fun. Just as a side note too, in terms of the fun, I ran numbers one year and discovered that over 60% of my revenue in the year that I actually did this analysis, my estate planning clients, over 60% of my revenue in estate planning came from people I played tennis with, or a direct referral from somebody I played tennis with. So it's not just good for your physical health and your mental health, it's good for business to have fun in your life. So just remember that. My accountant said you should play more tennis. So I definitely agreed with that. So appointment booking, it saves a ton of time. I got into the concept of appointment booking when I was managing and captaining tennis teams, and I was getting really stressed out and overwhelmed and felt like I was letting people down because I was so busy with my day job. Super, super huge time saver. Following up with leads. So this is kind of a Clio Grow thing. Is anybody have a good system and process in place for tracking and following up with leads? I'm not seeing a lot of hands here. I remember a story from years ago. Another thing I used to do, I used to be a ski patroller. Well, if you're a ski patroller, if you need ideas for different things to do in your life, come talk to me in the hallway. That was also good for business. And I remember having a conversation with a gentleman who was part of the patrol. This is a volunteer patrol. It was one evening at a tiny little ski area really close to me physically. So it was just kind of a fun thing to do in the evenings. And I remember one of the guys saying, "Hey, I need to get my will done. I need to get my estate plan done. I'd like to talk to you about that." I said, "Great, you have my email. Send me an email when you're ready to talk." And flash forward like 3 years after that, I saw this guy post on Facebook how great it felt to get his estate plan done. And guess who he didn't do it with? That was me. And next time I saw him, I jokingly said, like, "Hey, like, who did you use?" He goes, "Oh my gosh, I forgot you do that." So what I do now is if I have that conversation with somebody, I will say, oh, when do you want to get it done? And they'll be like, I don't know. I'm like, do you want to talk more about it? They're like, always. They always say yes. So I now send them a link to my booking calendar right then and there. I text them. I say, great. So I don't have to remember to follow up with them. They don't have to remember my email. I send them that text, and almost always people will book their appointment right then and there. And I don't feel like I'm constantly having to be on when I'm out on the tennis court. I don't even talk about estate planning anymore with my tennis friends. Client education. So client education, and as a solo, a couple of things that keep me up at night are, number one, making sure that I tell my clients the things that I want to share with them during consults. And I kind of like to wing it. I don't like a script. I've had scripts given to me, sold to me, provided to me by coaches and consultants over the years. I don't like following the script. So sometimes I worry about making sure that I've told people the things that they need to do. So one of the things that I've done in my own process, in my intake forms in Clio, I can talk more about this. This is a Clio Grow thing, so sorry. Sorry for the non-Grow users. It's not really a plug for Grow, but I use it and I like what I get out of it. So what I've done in my intake forums is I've made little videos. And this is actually the product of one of my product fails. It's not quite as epic as like Flaming Hot Cheetos lip balm, which is a thing, by the way. Pretty sure if I see that out there in the world, it's going into my kids' stockings for Christmas this year. But I had this grand idea years ago of creating an online course for clients. And I wanted to create, it was really an access to justice kind of thing. I wanted to create a way to offer a lower cost, very simple estate plan to people. And I built it as an online course, and it worked pretty well and the only people that I was using it for were my existing clients who had new adult children. So kids that were going off to college, and they seemed to be the only ones that were kind of using it and navigating it. And they're like, whatever, my mom just said I need to sign this thing. I'm going to get through it. And I had this idea of what if I could maybe expand that into a client that needs a trust, right? Maybe it's going to be a higher cost option, but it can still provide some efficiency. And it was a fail. So I built this online course. I spent so much time on it. And I built it in one of the online course platforms. And I had a client who also used that platform. She was a voice coach. And she had a class that she built. And no matter what she did, she kept getting stuck in this loop of getting brought into her class or into another class that she had signed up for. And she had a really hard time getting into my class. And I'm sure there was some sort of tech solution. We cleared the cache, we did this, we did that. And it just was very frustrating for her. And it ended up costing more time for me. It didn't make things easier. And so that was a sign to me that wasn't going to be the way that I did this. So what I've done instead is building intake forms. I now have links to the videos that I made for that online course. They are not all for naught. They live on Vimeo, if I'm pronouncing it right. And I set those to private settings so that people can go and access it. So it explains things they might want to consider when they're choosing a guardian for their kids, and things to consider in choosing who their power of attorney is going to be, things they might want to know about choosing an executor and a trustee. So those videos add that human touch of me and getting to hear my voice talk to them about the things that they need to know and making the really important decisions as they fill out that intake form to complete their estate planning questionnaire. Happy to talk more if anyone has questions about that process. Another thing, and services delivery, these last two kind of go hand in hand for me. And I can see how some of these things would transition into and translate into a litigation practice. I used to do almost all investor and financial services arbitration cases. That was sort of where I got the start to my career. And then I transitioned into insurance for a couple of years. That was the high-risk sports stuff. Loved mediations. But when I worked in insurance, I had to use systems, and I hated it at first. There were like 6 different systems that I would have to report into, but I had to figure it out. And that actually was a really good lesson because it forced me to really think more about using them in my solo practice now. But the last thing that I wanted to share on this was trust funding. So again, for the estate planners, that's one of the things that keeps me up at night is if someone isn't paying us to do their trust funding, I want to make sure that they do it. I don't want someone to spend the money on a trust-based plan and then not do the funding part that's essential to make sure that their assets avoid probate. So that's a big purpose for a lot of people in my practice. So what did I do? I built out like a year of email reminders. that give people a checklist of, hey, this is what you need to do. You've got this done. Okay, now do this. And I kind of feel like if they haven't done it after a year of reminders, that's not on me, right? So I've done my part. So here are the process possibilities. This might be a little bit redundant, but appointment booking, the back and forth, that if you're not using something like that in your life and in your practice right now, that is super low-hanging fruit, and it is a way to save time. It also has the added benefits of avoiding double bookings. Anyone else with ADHD? I had to train myself, number one, to manage my calendar. I know there's a session tomorrow with one of the other really amazing coaches who's speaking here at CleoCon on time management. I had to train myself to manage my calendar. And using that, the time management plus the online booking has saved me from double booking, forgetting that I had this thing for my kids and whatever. It also provides automatic reminders for clients, so I almost never have no-shows. I used to have a lot of no-shows when I first started shifting into estate planning. Next up, following up with leads. I talked about that a little bit. So this is a place where you can step back into that creative place of the kindergartner with the blank slate. What are the things that you tell clients again and again? How can you reduce the amount of time that it takes you to get through a consult? Is there a little video or a checklist or something, an FAQ section that you might want to offer to prospective clients that will help them figure out if you're the right lawyer for them and also help you figure out if you're the right lawyer for them? I don't do Medicaid planning at all. And I have a very brief intake form there's a link to it in my appointment confirmation emails that go out to clients after they book. And it invites them to fill out the little form, and they fill out the little form, and it gives me very, very basic information about what they're looking for. And I've had, probably a handful of potential clients over the last 6 years since I've been doing things this way that were looking for Medicaid planning. And so I've reached out to them and say, hey, I think you're looking for this. This isn't what I do. Would you like some recommendations for other lawyers who do? And all but one of those clients said, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. There was one client who said, I really appreciate this email so much. I would love those recommendations for my parents. I'm reaching out looking for someone for my parents, but I appreciate that you did this so much that I actually want to use you for my own plan. So that worked out really, really well. Client education, I talked about that, the repeatable info. One of the things that I remember from my litigation and arbitration days was discovery and helping clients understand how important it was to do the things that they needed to do to satisfy discovery requests. I can see this working really, really well for an arbitration and litigation practice, and having a video saying, yeah, you actually do have to do these things. You actually have to go look for this stuff, and you do have to give me your tax returns. Services delivery. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we're almost halfway through our time, and I want to give time for workshop and a little bit of workshopping and also some Q&A. But always happy to talk more about this. Document automation. If you have forms that you use that aren't court-specific forms, that's a whole other conversation. Clio Draft can provide some of those solutions. But for example, I practice in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. New Hampshire has statutory powers of attorney. And so I use those statutory powers of attorney. They're built in Clio. And I've mapped my intake form fields so that they populate. So it takes me literally 2 clicks to generate powers of attorney for clients. Super easy. It took a while to set it up, but I will tell you 100%, if you haven't set up things like that in your practice, it is absolutely worth it. And having fun. So having out some time, calendaring some time for having fun, and don't forget to do that. There are all sorts of health and wellness benefits, but also it's good for business. All right. So my invitation to you before we step into giving you some time to come up with not 18,000, not 5, not 3, but one thing that you want to change in your practice, that you want to simplify, and that you would like to create a process for in your practice. I want to extend this invitation for you to think about things that you can either delegate, automate, or eliminate. So eliminate might be kind of a far reach. That could be a whole weekend session on what you can eliminate in your life. But I want you to think about things that maybe you're doing your own that you don't have to do. Like Jack was talking about answering your phone, right? Or answering the phone earlier. And I think answering the call and answering the phone are actually 2 different things, but that's also another topic for another day. but are there things that someone else can do for you? I like to think about Clio as my first line assistant. Is there something that I can have Clio do for me that I'm doing that I don't need to be doing? It still needs to get done. So you can think about those things. All right, so what I'd like to do now is give you just a couple of minutes of me not talking, because I can talk all day. We're all lawyers here. We could probably all talk all day long. But I want you to think and go back to that list of the things that are getting in the way of you finding joy and fun in your life. And just come up with one thing that you think is going to make life easier for you right now. If you could get it done while you're here at ClioCon, I'm going to tell you how to get it done and what to do if you can't get it done and you need to do it after you leave here. Just think of one thing. One thing. I see some people writing. I see a couple people looking like they're thinking hard. Just jot it down. And now I'd like you to turn, if there's somebody that you're sitting near in the audience, I'd like you to just take a minute and turn to each other and share your thing. Share the problem that you're facing and share your thoughts about a solution that you might have in your mind that might help you solve that problem. I'll also extend the invitation to offer feedback. If you are open to getting feedback, ask your audience neighbor for feedback. What are your thoughts on this? Now, if you haven't already gone here, I want to challenge you to think about a feature that Clio offers that can help you solve that problem. Appointment booking, document automation, intake forms, email automation. I'm going to offer up another question too. If you want to problem solve this with your audience neighbor, ask them how your thought, your solution might land with them. See if they have any feedback on that, if they were a client. All right, finish up your conversation and we're going to come back together and bring it all in. All right, show of hands. How many people came up with something super simple that you want to implement in your practice? Did you come up with something? I see a few hands. Does anyone want to share? This isn't Q&A time yet, but if anybody would like to share, can we start doing that? Can we do that? This was kind of off script. I didn't really plan this, but I would love to hear what you've come up with. Stevie, do you want to raise your hand if you want to share your thing? Share the problem and the solution that you came up with.
I'm also like estate planning attorney as well. So this has been great because but the educating beforehand and then also doing before as they receive their drafts. So we give them a written summary, but I like the idea of the videos. And unfortunately, our plan is we're going to be stuck here for an extra couple days because we live in Florida.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to do some videos since we have time to kill while we're waiting for a hurricane to blow through.
I love that so much. Well, and I hope everyone's safe. I hope everyone's safe where you are. I love that idea. And that's something I didn't mention, but it's something that I do as well. And I actually do one for each of my clients. I do a video walkthrough when I send the draft. So we have the draft and it gets uploaded into their client portal. And I do a video walkthrough. I know some lawyers do just a general walkthrough of the documents that isn't specific to the clients. I actually go through and I try to tie together their concerns and their worries and the specifics of their plan so they know that I pay attention, right? So, and it's worked well. And a lot of my clients are busy parents, so they appreciate that they can watch it at 2 a.m. if they want to, instead of having to go back and forth and take time off of work. Anyone else?
I have a follow-up on that, Angela.
What's that?
What technology do you use to record
for videos?
Yeah.
I just use Zoom. I just do it on Zoom. I do a screen share. I record it. I put it into my client folder and I put it into the Clio folder.
I love that because it's not new cost for more tools. Use something you already have.
And I used to think, I want to share this idea too with you. This is like the life coach in me. I used to get so caught up on the notion of things being perfect and wanting it to be professionally produced and all of these things. And then I figured out that that just hitting record on Zoom and making a video and sending it to people just totally works. People don't care if it's beautiful and professionally produced. So coming up with the way for things to be super simple was a big mindset shift for me. And I think a lot of us as lawyers, our brains are programmed to think that we need to do everything right? Like 99% right. And that might be true. Well, it is true for our legal work because there are very serious implications if we don't get something right. But when it comes to trying things in business, it's a whole different story. And that's where letting it be 80% good is good enough. Let it be a shitty first draft, right? And then let it get better from there. I love it. That's like, there's a business coach I worked with for a while. He used to use that term. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's genius. So giving permission to do that, to try and let it not be perfect is really, really important in this. Anyone else want to share a problem and a solution?
Well, I also do estate planning. So I keep, as you're going through and describing what you're doing, I keep jotting down little notes and I think, oh crap, if I could like follow her for a day and just steal a bunch of your ideas and be like, oh, yeah, little video summaries saying, here's what you should consider for guardians and here's what you should consider for POA.
Yeah.
But my friend here does real estate law, and I'm like, especially if you're doing residential, it's got to be the same type of thing you might be able to integrate in your own practice to add other tools to sort of automate it and ease the client journey. So yeah, I can't go through my entire list of things that I've already been stealing from your.
That's okay. People have paid me for this stuff, but you're getting it for free today. And I'll recommend this too. And I have a retreat coming up. If anybody wants to go on a retreat, come on, let me know. But I really encourage people to make their own retreat. We don't spend enough time with ourselves working on our business for the most part. And I've made the biggest leaps and bounds when I've carved out a day or a couple of days and just said, you know what, I'm turning the phone off, I'm putting on the auto email responder, I've got backup in case anybody needs something. I changed this several years ago. I started doing on my email autoresponder, it says, hey, I'm away and I'm not going to be reading your emails. However, if it's really, really important, please put urgent in all caps in the subject line when you respond. And either I or somebody else will respond to you. And I've had literally one email where somebody has done that. And I've been doing that for like 5 years now. So literally one. And that was like an emergency hearing on arbitration. So that wasn't actually an emergency, by the way. Someone thought it was. Could have waited until Monday. But carving those times out to do the things. I had an experience not too long ago where I needed to build out part of this stuff. It was a firm that I'm working with, and they use Locus, and I had to go build something out really quickly. And I realized that, wow, like you actually can get a lot done in a day. You can actually get a lot done in an afternoon. So I want to extend an invitation to anybody who needs that, like start making a date with yourself, book time with yourself. Like it's an appointment that has a $500 cancellation fee. Make it non-negotiable. And spend some time. Don't do time. Anybody do time in here? I'm going to keep you out. I'm going to keep you out of that. But spend some time and make the time. Make it a commitment to yourself to just make little improvements. It's all those micro improvements that go a long way. It's kind of like working out, right? Like I'm definitely not in the best shape of my life right now, but I committed to, even when I don't feel like working out, I'm like, okay, so I don't want to do an hour workout. I'm going to do a 10-minute workout. Cool. That's better than nothing. And that's true for working on business too, is carving out that 10 minutes to just do something. Something is better than nothing. Cool. All right. Anyone else have one that they want to share? We have 18 minutes left. So if anybody wants to start asking questions, if you've got one and you're like, I'm struggling with this and I don't know where to go, and you want to ask some questions, I extend the invitation to do so.
So am I understanding that the document, once you draft the documents, you're sending that out and doing a video walkthrough, just telling them the various aspects of the document? How do you invite them to respond back to you?
So the actual way that I do it is I say, so one, I've set the expectation. Are you an estate planner too? Yeah. So I set the expectation. I tell the client that I'm going to do that, and that's what they're going to get. And I tell them like, okay, let me know your thoughts. So that I've already set the expectation before I send it, but I just put a message that goes into the portal when I upload that document and I click share to portal. It says, hey, here are your documents. I put it in Word format and we have a PDF because sometimes formatting gets messed up for people in Word. So you've got Word, you've got PDF, and the video walkthrough. Let's plan to meet again. If we don't already have something on the schedule, let's plan to discuss, like, please watch it and we'll talk by blah, 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 like set a date. Otherwise people will just, let it sit forever for a year, for a year plus. And so I set that expectation and I invite that. And then sometimes I've already got the signing meeting scheduled. So it just depends. But for the most part, some people will email, some people will message in the portal, some people will text if they're a good friend. It just depends. So I could probably do better having a more consistent process, but for now it's working and I don't feel like there's any sort of time drag around it. Anybody else? I forgot how bright the lights are. It's like the interrogation, so I can't see y'all. Hold on. If you can wait for the mic, it's just we might have people who are virtual and also for the recording. That way we can capture the question. Thank you.
So I'm curious, do you do any sort of follow-up with clients after, because I know with estate planning, like me, you probably have a client who comes to you, gives you a bunch of money, and if you ever see them again, it's not going to be for years. And so do you have anything to sort of follow up and like get yourself Google reviews or referrals or anything like that? I noticed that you eliminated sending out birthday cards.
I did.
So I'm curious what you do as sort of follow-up to sort of keep the clients coming in.
I used to stress out about that, and I was in a program where they taught to always have the cookies or the food and the cake and the special sign and the frame, and I did that for a while, and I thought I had to do that, and I found that I was getting so busy, and my admin is remote, and it was kind of stressing me out to get all these things in place, and like I said, most of my clients are people I know or they're friends of friends. So I'm a total extrovert in case you hadn't figured that out. So I have a pretty large social media network, and I often will say happy birthday via that way. And that feels like enough. I know when I get a birthday card from my dentist, I'm like, she's a friend of mine. Like I knew her, like, come on, stop. Like, I don't want more paper in my life that I'm just going to throw away. So there's a little bit of my like inner environmentalist on that. In terms of following up, so a lot of people are just friends of mine on social media. My law firm social media is actually not very active. My personal page is a lot more active. And people don't seem to care if they see pictures of like the puppies that I played with downstairs. Like they're kind of cool with that. If you haven't been to the adoption thing over in the convention center, the puppies are really cute. So highly recommend that tomorrow. So people don't mind seeing that stuff. And I find that those personal things are the ones that people will respond to. And I kind of cycle through, like once a month, I'll put up an estate planning specific post. I'll say like PSA, estate planning topic for the month, like blah, 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 blah. And people reach out that way. One of the things that I used to do very consistently was a newsletter. And some people, when I first started writing my newsletter, I remember being asked to put together a list of 25 people for that first one, and I was terrified to send it. And I ended up with 50 people that I wanted to send that first one to. I used to write it consistently, and I don't write it as much right now because I'm busy with other things, and I would put a lot of time and heart and soul, and I put pictures of my hike up in the White Mountains in there. That's been a way that has worked really well, the newsletter, but not the general kind of generic law firm newsletter. Like, write it about you, especially if you're a estate planner. If you're an estate planner, it's so much about the personal relationship. I've had clients say again and again, I chose you because I know that my family is going to have to deal with somebody when I'm gone, and I want it to be you. So put you into those things if you're going to go down that path. One of the things I did, this is just a fun thing. This is part of like the fun advocate. I have a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I asked them once if they wanted to, because they get allowance. Like I buy my kids anything they want. And like I would put myself like living homeless if they wanted something, and that's what would happen. But I asked them if they were to pick up social media, maybe they get a little bump in their allowance. So they started coming up with these ridiculous Instagram posts. It was hilarious, and one of them was like, why don't you love your kids? Do your damn trust already. And it was this picture of like this beautiful, like calm scene on a beach. And I didn't put that on my firm Instagram, but what I did do is I shared it to my personal social media. And I said, this is what my teenagers have come up with for a marketing plan. And people laughed and they thought it was hilarious. And there was they came up with this whole like list of them. And I put it out there and I got responses from that. People thought it was funny. So have fun. It's okay. It's okay to have fun. Just figure out where and how to do it and comply with ethical obligations, et cetera, et cetera. You got to do those things. So, because it wasn't my marketing. It was just me sharing what my kids came up with. Yeah.
I just thought I'd share that. On that note, I've been trying for years to figure out how to add in the tagline that says, "We make dying awesome."
I think you should just do it. I think you should just do it. Just put it out there and see what happens. So I mentioned I do some peer recovery coaching too, and my marketing people that they did both my firm website and they just did my new coaching website. And she's like, "What do you do when someone's like really in the thick of it and they want to quit drinking?" And I was like, sometimes that's not the time to quit drinking. You got to kind of like settle the flame, like maybe not put out the flames, but like lower the flames a little bit. And she looked at me and she said, "So it's not quit drinking, it's just quit drinking and driving." And I was like, exactly. So like sometimes that's enough, but try it. And I'm not ready to put that one out there, right? But try it. Like just share it with your friends. Like, what do you think? Right? Another one of the ideas that my kids came up with, and we kind of collaborated on this one, and I still haven't quite made it happen either, but it was this video with the Grim Reaper, and the first scene is like a duck and ducklings crossing in the crosswalk on the street. And there's a car, you see a shot of a car coming towards them. And, the Grim Reaper's kind of in the background and the car stops and someone throws like my business card, like down, like by the ducklings. Right. And then there's this little old lady also like crossing the street and the Grim Reaper's like kind of following her. And she turns around with her handbag and like smacks the Grim Reaper and then also like throws my business card at the Grim Reaper. So anyway, it's coming soon to an Instagram near you. So I have a friend who's a musician and he came up with kind of his riff on Don't Fear the Reaper that's not quite going to violate IP laws, IP requirements. So have fun with it. Have fun with it in a way that feels authentic. Sometimes people will step into this notion of having fun and sharing maybe a little too much of who they are. I probably did that today. Sorry, guys. And it's a fail if it's not authentic. So don't be afraid to bring a little bit of authentic you into the mix. Any other questions? I know, Stevie, we had some sort of like preloaded questions. If anybody else has questions or comments or things you want some help with, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise,
I can ask you a follow-up question.
All right, let's hear it.
Because you said a little bit earlier, there's something different between responding to calls versus answering calls. This is your time to.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna get called in on that, right? So somebody asked me, and if you're here in the audience, don't worry, I'm not going to say your name. I never call anybody out in that way. And so, does anybody remember the show Murphy Brown? That's like me and admins. Like I am the worst hirer. I finally figured out it's my personality type. I want to be everybody's friend, but I'm the worst at hiring help. And I'll hire people and they're not the right fit. And then I don't want to fire them because like, I don't want to do that. And so I end up just paying them anyway and doing all their work instead. I don't do that anymore, but that was a pattern for a long time. And I had a brief period where I had let go of an admin. Interesting story. I was trying to lose weight at the time, still trying to lose weight, but I was trying to lose weight at the time and I was getting on the scale every single day. And the night that I decided to fire her, I don't know, I hate using the word fire, but the night I decided it was time to compassionately have the discussion about parting ways. Conscious, I don't know, there's some word for it, right? But what was it? Conscious uncoupling. I know, not in like a romantic sense, right? But so yeah, conscious work on coupling. So the next morning I got on the scale and I literally lost 7 pounds, like overnight. I thought there was something wrong with my scale. And I was like, well, this is interesting, isn't it? flash forward, like, I think it was like 6 months after that, I was dating somebody who it was time for the actual conscious uncoupling. Got on the scale the next morning. I lost 7 pounds overnight with that one too. So that's kind of an By the way, the person who brings back human-centered design to dating apps, like, you'll be my hero. So the difference between answering the phone and answering a call, I don't have a live person answering my phone. So I actually felt a little bit like, when Jack was talking about that earlier today. And after letting that admin go, I needed to find a solution. And I was going to use one of the outsourced options. And I had a couple of friends that were using the ones that I was going to consider using. They weren't having good experiences. So I decided not to do that. And what I did is I changed my outgoing message and I said, hey, you've reached us. And sometimes I'd answer the phone, sometimes I wouldn't. So if I wasn't answering the phone, the message would say, we're not able to answer your phone. You can leave a message. It might take a while, paraphrasing here, might take a while to get back to you. So if you would like a faster response time, either email me or go to the website and book an appointment online. And what I found over time, and I got kind of lazy about it, I thought I would get somebody else in there to answer the phone. And what I noticed over time is I could see who called and when, and that outgoing message was converting about 90% of those calls into appointments booked. Now, I don't know how this would work on a larger scale. I have a very small, largely referral-based practice. So that's worked for me. And so I haven't changed it because it's worked. But I think the reason it worked is it gave people certainty. It wasn't just falling into the vacuum of nobody's answering the phone and I don't know, like, okay, skip, like I'm going to go on to the next. I think it gives people the certainty of knowing that they're going to talk to me at a certain time on a certain day, or at least a human on a certain time at a certain day. So that's one way that I kept things really simple. So I think in that sense, I may not be answering the phone, but I feel like I'm answering the call, if that makes sense. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I have an additional follow-up if the audience has no other questions. Oh, we have one.
You had mentioned having ADHD. Have you ever found any use out of ADHD coaching? I also have ADHD and have had trouble with managing my time.
Yeah, I have not worked with an ADHD specific coach, but I have worked with other different aspects of life coaching, business coaching and life coaching, and I felt like I got what I needed from that. I will tell you that one of the things that works for me, and I have at least one, probably both of my kids are ADHD, one of them diagnosed, one not. A thing that works for me is creating an accountability system via Post-it notes. There's a whole bunch of Post-it notes in the back tables, by the way, if anybody needs Post-it notes. And this does not come from any place of like being an ADHD expert or anything. This is just the thing that has worked the best for me over the years, is putting notes to remind me to get back on track in places where I would go off track. And I also use dry erase markers on the mirror in the morning. I write notes to myself at night to remind myself to whatever it is in the morning, like, don't forget to drop the car off for service. Or it might be like a little self-love note, which is, what do you need most today? Reminding myself to ask. I've found a journal that has worked well for me, and I find that I have to plan the week. Sunday night, I need to sit down and I need to plan for the week. I set some quarterly goals, and every morning before I actually start work, I sit down in my journal and I plan out my day and I review my plan that I made before and see if there's anything that needs to shift. And I set timers. I set a lot of timers for myself. I hope that's helpful. Happy to talk more about that. Yeah. Just the accountability things, Post-it notes and alarms and notes on the mirror.
Hi, I'm a real estate paralegal, actually. So I was wondering if you have any advice. My attorney, he gives me things to do in several different ways. Teams, email, Post-it notes, emails again, and to-do lists. Any advice for kind of funneling that down so I can actually do the things?
I think the first thing that I would do if I were in your shoes is ask, like, tell them, like, it's really hard. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it's hard for you to keep track of that. Like, I would find that hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
And so I would ask and say, hey, and I would probably own it, not to come from a place of self-blame or anything, but I would have a hard time managing that. And so I would say, listen, I'm struggling to keep track of all these things and I don't want anything to slip through the cracks. Would you be open to picking just one? Or would you be open to using some other option that we can just put everything in there so you know that you can just like put in this thing and add it to the to-do list? So maybe it's Asana, maybe it's Notion, maybe it's just Teams or whatever. Maybe it's tasks in Clio. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's Post-it notes, notes in dry erase on the mirror, right, on your monitor. I don't know. But I would just ask him if he would be open to that and then work together to pick the one that's going to work for both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else? We have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Any other Q&A? All right, so I want to do one last thing before we wrap up. I want you all to close your eyes one more time. One more time, close your eyes. And imagine walking in here a year from now. Maybe it's this room. Maybe it's a different room in a different city. I don't know. We'll find out when it's time. And you're walking in and you're looking for a seat, an open seat. And you see somebody that looks a little bit familiar. And so you go and you're like, oh, I'm going to go sit next to that person. And as you're walking towards them and you sit down, you realize it's future you. Future you is sitting right there. I want you to go sit next to future you. And I'm going to be quiet here for a second. And I want you to ask future you, what's the one thing that my version of me right now needs to know that's going to make my life easier? It's going to give me more time. It's going to give me more confidence. It's going to give me more focus. It's going to help me make more money, whatever it is. Just ask. And I want you to listen. And I want you to say thank you to future you. And know that you can always, anytime you want, just close your eyes and imagine sitting down and talking to future you and ask them what they have to share with you. Anytime you want, because you're a part of them and they're a part of you. And there's one last thing I forgot to share with you all. I wanted to give a shout out to somebody I can't see because the lights are so bright, but anybody heard of My Shingle, Carolyn Elephant? Anybody heard of Carolyn? She's amazing and wonderful. If you've been struggling with AI and how to use it in your practice and how to do it properly, Carolyn is, and she might be in here, I just can't see. She's amazing. So check out her stuff. She had a class on AI and how to use it. And I always love seeing her posts and seeing what she has to say. And I trust her thoughts on it as well. So I didn't want to forget that. But the most important thing that I want all of you to remember and to walk out of here knowing is that you have the ability to change anything that you want in your life. And it doesn't have to be a massive overhaul with 18,000 different things. It's the single, simple little things that you do every day, every moment of every day. You have a choice about what you do in the next moment. And don't forget that. And give yourselves a lot. I want you all to give yourself credit for the amazing things that you're capable of doing. Okay? All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. It was so great to see you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thanks.